I wanted to create a little quizzer based on this little snippet that I found online, where if you look at the page to the right, as I hover over this top rectangle, it says, hello there, my parent element is hidden, but I'm still visible. Hover over me to make my parent visible. Well, you hover and then you get this yellow background with a blue border. And I created 3 more of those as a like question answer quiz kind of thing. What is the capital of New York? And you think about it, then you hover over it to see if your idea was right. So down here it says Albany, and then when I hover over the rectangle itself, the inner rectangle, I get the tooltip that says Albany. Same thing here. What is the capital of Maine? Augusta. When I hover, and then when I hover in this inner box, I get Augusta as a tooltip. What is the capital of Georgia? Atlanta. Same thing. Atlanta is the tooltip. I'm going to show you how this page works. There is the beginning HTML and the ending HTML tags that nest everything else. There's the head tags with a title that says visibility, and the word visibility shows up right here on the tab. Here, this is the link to an external style sheet. Link rel equals style sheet, type equals text / CSS, href equals visibility.css. So visibility.css is the name of an external file that we're using, and right here is that. We have a dot hidden style that has visibility, hidden background yellow, border 10 pixels of blue ridge, border radius 20 pixels, and padding of 10 pixels. So that when you hover over this, you see what was hidden. That's the style for it. And then the style for visible, which is the black rectangle that you see with the pointy corners, we have border 1 pixel, solid black, visibility visible, padding 10 pixels, and margin 10 pixels. Then I have something called the dot hidden hover. So the dot hidden, which is this, when I hover over this that's in the middle of it, when I hover over the visible, what was invisible now becomes visible. So this hover style is only set to visibility visible. These are some styles that I did for other pages, so I'm not going to really care about them right now. So let's go back to how this page is made. That was the style sheet link that I just went over. There's the end of the head and the body. Here is basically how everything in these purple tags is how this top one works. We have div class equals hidden. We have a little set of words here. Hi, I'm hidden. Notice that all my styling is hidden as well, and that I still take up space even though you can't see me. And then inside this hidden div, we have another div. And this div is called class visible, and that's what you get to read here before we actually hover over it. The hello there, my parent element is hidden, but I'm still visible. Break tag takes us to the next line. Hover over me to make my parent visible. And so there's the end of that inside div, and there's the end of that outside div. So just because of these styles that we created, we're able to have this little effect here. And down here, same thing. Div class equals hidden, and div. Inside of the hidden div, we have a class as visible div with a title, which is a tooltip. And then inside that visible div, we have a quiz question. And outside of the visible div, but still inside of the hidden, is our answer that pops up. So when we hover over this, you see Albany down here, and you see the tooltip Albany pop up, the little square pop up. And I just did it a couple of more times. It's the exact same process. I just used a different quiz question and quiz answer. End of the body, end of the HTML. Okay, so this right here was basically the snippet of code that I found online. I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. Maybe I could do something with it. And then I went into, doing state capitals. And I still wasn't really happy with this because I thought it would be nice for the user to not just mentally imagine the right answer and then check by hovering over. It would be nice if they added a way to type what they think their answer is, and so that it's not just visual, but it's also using their hands to manipulate as well as their imagination. So what I came up with, well, before I show you that, I'll show you that I was looking for something online that just gave me a list of the states and the capitals, and this is what I found. So I uh, I copied and pasted this little snippet just so I could make a 50 question quizzer for all the states and capitals. So this is just my reference. But this is what I actually created. So if I run this, this is what I came up with. When you hover inside the box itself, it doesn't do anything. But when you hover over this green section, you see how Montgomery fades in and out. So this is more, this is I think, kind of cooler because it fades in and fades out. And the text area here, what you can do when you absolutely have no idea of your states and capitals, when you take your insertion in this text, the answer pops up, so you can physically type it just by copying it. And actually, if you don't know how to spell it, like you say, oh, I know it's Montgomery, but I'm not sure how to spell it, this will eradicate that. And so for someone who's just starting to learn their capitals and their states, or rather their states and their capitals, this might be a clever way where, they can just study by copying what they see. Now, it's kind of kluxy because you have to keep moving your cursor down and click inside the text box. But once you get good at this, instead of moving your mouse, you can hit your tab. And I just hit my tab. I did not move my cursor. If you notice, my cursor is still up here on Little Rock. So what is the capital of California? Blah. Then you hit your tab button. What is the capital of Colorado? Blah. Tab button. What is the capital of Connecticut? Blah. And so on and so forth. And you don't even have to move your mouse at all, and you don't get to see the answer, but you get to put a bunch of guesses in here. And then when you come down and float over that section, you get to see if you were right or not, because the answer will appear. Same thing here. You just float it down and you get the answer. So when you first start, it's a little cluxy because you have to keep moving your mouse. But once you start doing it with just your tab, you could just do the whole quiz and then correct yourself at the end. This doesn't have a function to automatically correct your work. This basically is just me fooling around with the functionality of making a hidden element appear. So let's go over the code for this state and capital quizzer. Here's our beginning HTML tag, and way down here there's our end. Here's our head, and in our head we have a bit of style. This is not using this visibility.css. This is going about the fade in and fade out with a whole different way. So we have a dot box, which means class, and everywhere, every div that I have class box, class equals box, it's going to have a border of thin black solid, padding of 5 pixels, margin of 5 pixels, and I originally had a width, but then I z'd it out, so there is no width given. It basically stretches with the page. If I put that width back on here, you'll see it keeps it small like that. I guess for the purposes of what I'm doing right now, I could actually keep it small. Doesn't really matter. It might be easier to look at. Then I have an ID called stuff. And for ID stuff, there's opacity 0.0, WebKit transition, all 500, I think that means milliseconds, ease in, out. Then Moz transition, all 500 milliseconds, ease in, out. And if MS doesn't mean milliseconds, then I apologize, but I'm assuming that's what it means. And then we have MS transition, all 500 milliseconds ease in out, zero transition, all 500 milliseconds ease in out, and transition, all 500 milliseconds ease in out. That's for ID stuff. Then I have ID hover, which again, I started off with a width, but then I Z'd it out. I don't think it matters. I could just erase this, but I'm just going to Z it out in case I want to use it in the future. Height of 20 pixels, background color of green, color of white, and margin bottom 15 pixels and padding 15 pixels. Then I have this, and I didn't create this style. I found it online, and the way it worked was so neat I wanted to use it. ID hover, colon hover. So now whatever div has the ID of hover, when we hover over that div, we have plus ID stuff. So we have pound hover, colon hover, plus pound stuff. Both of those will get opacity of 1.0. Then we have ID container, which is just really this blue border that goes all the way around the web page itself. And all it's got is a border of thick blue solid. Again, this did originally have a width, but I Z'd it out, so it really has no width set, but border radius of 20 pixels so that the corners are rounded. And then I have a list item, style, margin left, negative 15 pixels. That's because I wanted these numbers to be a little more to the left. When I take this and Z it out and save it and refresh the page, I didn't want this much space. I just wanted to slide the whole thing over a little bit. So I had to give it a negative margin, a margin left of negative 15 pixels, so that I would force it to the left whether it wanted to go there or not. Alright, so the end of the style, the end of the head, let's get to the body elements itself. Div ID container, again, that's this blue box that contains every single one of these 50 states and capitals. I have an ordered list, so there's the OL tag, there's the beginning OL tag, and of course after all 50 there's the ending OL tag. There's the ending of that div container that has the blue border. Our first list item. Now you notice every single one of these states and capitals is inside of a list item. So once I show you 2 or 3 list items, I don't need to keep showing you everything, because the only thing that's going to change are what the question is and what the answer is. So we've got div ID, div class box. Then we've got div ID hover, and inside that div with an ID of hover, I have label for, and I'm not really sure why I kept this at author. I don't think, yeah, this doesn't really apply. That doesn't apply. Let me see what happens when I take it off. Label, what is the capital of Alabama? I think when you say label for, I don't know, I could just say 1. I think in your actual text input, you either put ID equals 1 or you put name equals 1. That way if you do other things, like if you're checking the text or the label, but since I'm not actually doing that in any of these right now, I'm just going to get rid of the fors. So everywhere that for author is, I'm going to go to search, find, and it's going to say find what? For equals author. Replace with, I'm just going to backspace so that it's blank, and I'm going to hit replace all. And then it says replace all 49 occurrences were replaced. Okay, so I'm not actually using that 4 in my label, so I'm not going to worry about it. As long as it still functions the way I want, and it does. I would like to rerun this. I'm going to launch it in Chrome this time, because I want all of the text areas to be blank. There we go. All the text areas are blank. This is Chrome. All right. All right, so again, there's our list item. Here's our outer div class equals box. Here's our 2 inner divs. There's 2 inner divs. This one with the ID of hover, it's got a label that says what is the capital of Alabama, and it's got an input type equals text, size equals 30, and value equals nothing. If I wanted to put something in value, that would basically show up. That would show up inside the text box. You could go in here and type over it. You know, you'd have to go in here, erase and type over it. I don't want there to be a value, but the code is there in case I do want to have a value in the future. Okay, and there's the end of the div. So that basically gave me the question, what is the capital of Alabama? And it gave me this text area to type in. Here's the div with the answer. Div ID equals stuff. Now I think it would make more sense if I changed the word stuff to answer, since I am making this a bit of a quiz. So I'm going to highlight stuff. I'm going to go to search and find. And everywhere that the word stuff is, I am going to change that to answer. And I'm going to hit replace all. I hope I didn't mess anything up, because this says 52 occurrences were replaced and I only have 50 states. But then I want to go to, oh good, this was originally stuff, and that's why it went up to 52. It changed it in the 2 places the word stuff was. It changed it there and there in my style. So that's perfect. That's what I was going to do afterwards. And instead of the word hover, just hover, I could say hover question. I could just say question, but since this is basically about hovering, I'm going to give it the name hover question. Now I need to change everywhere that the word hover is and turn it into hover question. So search, find, hover, replace with hover question. Replace all. 53 occurrences were replaced. I think we went this one, changed hover question to hover question question. It fixed one that I had already manually fixed. So now also it changed it up here in the CSS, which is pretty great, and down here. So it still should work the same. Oh. It's actually not. I did something and I messed it up. Well, that's not fun. Yeah. Oh, duh. This right here does not need to be changed to hover question, because this is a hover event. When you have an element which is pound hover question, that's the ID I gave it, and then you have this colon to use the hover event, I should not have changed that word hover, because that's an actual event. All right, so now let me see if I fix that. Okay, cool. All right, so now I made it look a little neater. I come in here and it's basically doing the same thing, but with it being a little closer to the actual answer when you're first learning, it's a little easier to see the answer and spell it correctly. Because some of these are strange, like Juno. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. So having the answer that close is good to help you learn the spelling of these. As long as you're actually reading the question too and not just looking at the answer and typing it in. And then when you start doing really good, instead of using your cursor to get the answer, you just type it, hit your tab. I don't know that. Tab, blah. And you just tab until you get so good that you just can keep going without, whatever. And if you keep hitting tab, if you don't know something and you just want to skip what you don't know and just go to what you do know, you just keep hitting tab and don't type anything at all. And it'll just take you to the next one. And do I know any of these? I think this is Santa Fe, Raleigh, blah. If I don't know the capital of my own state, I need to be shot. Anyway, you get the gist. I don't need to talk about this anymore. I think I showed you how the list items work. You just copy and paste this whole thing and you just paste it down here, and the only thing you need to do is change the label, which is going to be the question. And in div ID equals answer, this is where you're going to put the answer. List item, div class equals box, div ID equals hover question, label, what is the capital of Arkansas, input type equals text size equals 30, value equals nothing, and then end div ID equals answer, and in between the beginning and ending div tags, just type in your answer and your list item, and you just keep going for if you have 50 states and capitals, do it this way. Then when you get your very last one, the end of the OL tag, the end of the div tag, the end of the body tag, the end of the HTML, and that's all that this page does. You could turn this into any kind of question answer thing. You could have only 10 questions. It doesn't have to be 50. You might only want to do 10 at a time because that might seem aggravating to have a page that has to scroll this much. Also, if you don't want this to be this small, like say your question is really long, if you leave it this wide, but your question is like really long, blah, 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 and then you save it, do you see how it hides in there? You lose the rest of the question. So that we need to take the size off of this from, what did I save it as, 310, this box, put a Z in front of width, and it should expand to fit the width of your page. Now, if the width of your page is that narrow, then this is not a very good program. Let's see, how would I fix that if I want this to drop down? Let's see. Maybe I would not have a height for my hover question. I have 20 pixels. Let me Z out the height and see what happens. Well, basically that's kind of better because as you get more narrow, the green section just gets as big as it needs to, and it moves the text box down. So I think that makes more sense. The hover question should not have a width or a height. I'm going to leave it there if I want to change it in the future. enforce width and height. But right now, I like the idea that I don't lose the question if it's a long question. Like, yeah, even though I don't really like that my box is being moved in the center, I guess it doesn't really matter. I guess the one way I could change that would be to put a break tag before my text area, before my input. Wait. Yeah, after between my label and my input, I think if I put a break tag there, let's see how that looks. I could do that. That way, no matter how big the question is, the text area that you're going to type is always, always, always going to be on the left, which is going to be nice because when you hover there, the answer is always right there at the left of the page. So it's nice that it's close to the text box again so that you could look at it and type it until you have these things memorized. So what I'm going to do is I do like that better. Is I'm going to put a break tag on all 50 of these. Actually, how I could do it to make it quicker is I can take this end label tag, highlight end label, go to search, find, replace, and I'm going to replace it with end label, and then add a break tag. Replace all. All 50 occurrences were replaced. Now let's see. Yeah, good deal. Okay, so with that, I'm going to call this video a day.